So we have 30 minutes left, and Jeff Morgan is going to talk to us some more about the no-fault divorce situation here in Texas. So, Jeff, it's all yours.
So my name's Jeff Morgan. I have known Jody for a long time, probably 4 to 5 years, Jody? Yeah. So maybe 6, yeah. So I've got a couple of handouts here. One is going to be kind of an outline of what I'll be following. The other one is also something that I handed out at a Rockwall Reagan Day dinner in 2019. I was very appreciative that Jesse actually remembered that I lived in Rockwall. We've been talking about this issue for a long time. So just very quickly, I'm going to give you a quick background. I know I've got half an hour here, and I'm going to be wrapped up within that time frame, but I'm going to do what I can to get in as much as I can. Be very glad to take questions as well. If anybody wants to know more, I do have a YouTube channel. You can go to YouTube and put in Jeff Morgan. My picture will sign up. It will show up for you if you want to subscribe. That would be great. I'd appreciate it. My background is that, so I became a Christian in high school. About 17 years old, watched Billy Graham and stuff like that, gave my life to Christ. After that, I became a missionary in the Middle East. Wanted to live my life by God's Word, by the Word of God. And I felt that for me that meant going into missions. But at the same time, when I came back to the United States, it was not just missionary work overseas, it's whatever you have to do here. You want to follow God's will, you want to help to expand His kingdom on earth. If we follow God's Word, it's better for everybody, right?
Amen.
So anyway, in 2012, I came back to the States in 2004. We moved to Texas. In 2012, I went through a no-fault divorce. And I had heard about no-fault divorce. I had no idea how abusive, how exploitive, how bad it was. It was horrible. Whenever you're being drugged to court, you should have a remedy at law. With no-fault divorce, there is no remedy at law. There is a predetermined outcome. If one person wants a divorce, there is nothing you can do to stop it, except maybe persuade the other person to hold off. The judge will not, except for Jesse here, evidently denied one divorce, and another guy did. But by and large, those are the exceptions. It very seldom happens that a divorce will ever be denied. What happens then is that the attorneys say, well, we're going to help, we're going to represent you. They are representing the division of your assets. Why should I have to have anything divided if I am not done anything that is worthy of that? We have certain protections in our Constitution. The 14th protection says that our life, liberty, and property are protected except by due process of law. Now you may have seen I got a little bit unhinged, not unhinged, but passionate when Jesse was here, because the constitutional protections by and large do not apply to family courts. These are abusive courts. And if you think that, well, I'm going to stand up for my constitutional rights, forget it. Judges are gods. You may get lucky and get one that doesn't quite consider himself to be a god. But you heard some of the things that he was talking about. He said, can you give me the legal definition of the best interest of the child? Well, there is no definition. He said that. Can you tell me what irreconcilable differences means? What's the legal definition? Well, there is no legal definition. How about insupportable? And it was interesting because I got the Texas GOP platform changed last year before, 2019 I think, or 2021, or I don't even remember what the time frame was, maybe 2020. But because in the Texas GOP platform it says that the legislature should repeal no-fault divorce and also uphold covenant marriage. And what I did, I changed the wording so that the legislature should repeal unilateral no-fault divorce. What's the difference? Unilateral is one person wants it, another person does not. Forced divorce. And if you go back to what happened in Bolshevik Russia under Vladimir Lenin, this was one of the things that he did. He implemented no-fault divorce, divorce on demand, divorce for any reason, for no reason, unilateral divorce. And his underlying philosophy was this: destroy the family, destroy society. Within 10 years of what Vladimir Lenin did, the Russians, the communists, were debating, what do we do about this no-fault divorce issue? Because no-fault divorce had caused such societal upheaval that they didn't know what to do. They had orphans running around. They had people, one peasant lady said, abortion now covers our village with shame. They never had abortion. You would have people that think that they're getting married for a lifetime. And somebody could say, well, you know what, 6 months later, I've had sex with you, you've been great, I want to go back here, you're gone. It's very, very, very unjust. What about the children? The children in the best environment is to be raised in an intact family with both natural parents. Not mommy and stepdaddy, not daddy and stepmommy, not mommy and boyfriend or daddy and girlfriend, or not boyfriend and boyfriend, not daddy and boyfriend and not mommy and girlfriend. Or significant others, whatever you want to do. This is so perverse what's taking place in our courts today. And what Jesse said is that the legislature has permitted some of these things. I will tell you that some of the statutes that have been implemented have been anti-constitutional. They have no legal basis. There was a book then, and I don't remember exactly when it was, I don't remember the exact title, but basically it was about Soviet innovation and law that we now have in our states. No-fault divorce. If you look at no-fault divorce, it violates many, many principles of law. So what I'm going to do is, well, in addition to that, I talked about my own divorce a little bit, some of the principles. I went to the church. The church was horrible. The church should have been saying, wait a minute, because I got married in a church. I got married with the understanding that my marriage was until death do you part. That was my vow. Did it get hard along the way? Absolutely, it got hard along the way. But nevertheless, that was my vow. My vow to God, taken in the presence of many witnesses, should at least have the same type of legal weight as a prenuptial. And yet what happens in the state of Texas, and basically throughout almost every state in the union, is that the state can say, oh, you made a vow to God? That means nothing. You have a prenuptial? Oh, you don't? Oh, okay. Oh, you do have a prenuptial. Let's look at the prenuptial. My vow to God is much more important than a prenuptial. And when two people enter into a religious marriage, they take very specific steps. So basically what happens, we'll say you're married, your husband, your wife, they decide, you know what, I don't want to follow Christ anymore, I want to run off with this person because she's sexier, he has more money, whatever the reason may be. The state will always, without exception, except maybe 1 or 2 times as we heard today, side with a person who wants a divorce, period. That's it. And that is extremely unjust. Did I get married to say, hey, we're going to get married for 5 years and split? No. Did I get married to say, well, we're going to get married for 10 years and then we're going to have kids and then, we're going to split that? No. My intent and the intent of having children is to provide a safe home for the children. And that home should be with a mother and father, their mother and father. Not an imposter dad, not an imposter mom. And certainly not the state. No-fault divorce comes down to this basic principle. The state owns your children, the state owns your family. This should be abhorrent. But we have looked at no-fault divorce as being, well, people couldn't get along. That sometimes is true. But really, no-fault divorce in many instances becomes forced divorce. No-fault divorce also becomes an excuse where there may be a man who's abusing his wife. He files for no-fault divorce. He should be charged with abuse and put to jail. There may be a woman, and she's saying, hey, you know what? I'm using marriage to step up a little bit. I see a richer guy. I'm going to go to him now. That's adultery. Adultery used to be a felony. Now in our Texas state, now we've gotten rid of that. I mean, there's really no problem with adultery. I have to wonder if it's because maybe some of our politicians would have to resign, or judges, or whomever. But so let me go into what I was going to say here. I went through a no-fault divorce in Rockwall, Texas. Jesse Navarez actually remembered where I was from. Really impressed me that he did that. Judge Brett Hall, who said, well, I had to grant a divorce. There was nothing I could do. I had correspondence from my ex-wife who said, I didn't even know if I was doing the right thing. And then kind of like, well, I was holding up hope to the very end. Well, you filed for divorce. You went through with it. You used an attorney to come after me, and you're blaming me? And now you're saying, well, I really didn't want it. I wasn't sure. That judge, Brett Hall, I believe has blood on his hands. He had a responsibility to determine, really? Tell me what irreconcilable differences mean. Are you swearing to God, to my ex-wife, that you have irreconcilable differences? Show me how it is. Because Judge Brett Hall, in my opinion, is a destroyer of marriages and families. And I've gone to his court and I've watched him. And he's done this repeatedly. And not just Brett Hall, there are many like him. So let me go real quickly into this. because I know my time is limited here. I wrote down a quick outline, and basically, if you look at here, NoFault Divorce, the wrecker of nations and destroyer of society. My points that I will talk about will be in here. They're not going to necessarily be in this order. I did have a PowerPoint presentation, but it was, last time I did it was in California, and pertained just to the religious liberty issue. The religious liberty issue is a huge, huge issue in my opinion. When the state is allowed to destroy an ordinance of the church or a sacrament of the church, we have a big problem. And in fact, in 2003, in Waite versus Waite, there was a Texas justice who looked at it and said, no-fault divorce should be unconstitutional because of this religious nature of marriage. One guy said, listen, here's, what was the purpose of marriage? And he said, my purpose was to obey God, to Jesus Christ, and it was a symbol of the relationship between God and the church. It's interesting how we get upset because the state takes down Christmas trees, but we don't get upset with a state destroying marriage needlessly. And I'm not saying, just to let you know what I'm saying, I'm not saying abolish divorce. I've never said that. Were you trying to get rid of all divorce? No, but I think we can minimize divorce. There are some instances where divorce is absolutely necessary. But in most instances, and these come from justices, family court judges, family counselors, about 40% at least of marriages that go through divorce are what they call needless divorce. So we are inflicting, just a moment here, we're inflicting needless pain on families. We're letting lawyers exploit them. There's no way that if you have an attorney that's going to help you, he's not going to help you win. He's going to help you divide an asset up. And that's something that you should never even have to go through. If somebody wants to leave, let them leave. But you don't get to leave the marital asset or the marital estate and plunder the assets. If I join a company and if I want to leave the company, I can leave, but I don't get to take their intellectual property with me. I don't get to say, listen, I've used this computer for the last 10 years, or for the last few years, I'm going to take the computer with me. The computer, the intellectual property, belongs to the corporation that I'm working for, the business. Same thing with the marital estate. There are things that become marital property, marital assets. You don't leave the estate, you don't leave that and then say, but I'm going to plunder everything. And by the way, I'm going to leave the door open for the attorneys to get the rest of it. Go ahead, I'll take your question.
No, I was just agreeing with you.
Okay, go ahead.
One of the questions I was going to ask Jesse that I didn't get a chance to was, how does political status affect the adjudication of these marriage cases? And as you're talking about marital estate property, as we all should know, all property is held under estates. So it's either going to be under the public charitable trust, which is a public estate, where all of our goods can be probated like that, or it's under a private family estate, like you're mentioning.
So this is what I think, but I think the way that the law is written right now is that we're a community property state. So, I mean, look, at the whole family code, in my opinion, is fraught with deception, with lies, with unconstitutional statutes. I mean, it's almost better to jettison it.
Well, you were here prior. We already saw, we have a whole printout where it even says that, like, most of us are actually operating outside of the Constitution.
Right.
And if you go, the right to trial by jury in civil cases guaranteed by the 7th Amendment, 14th Amendment, no exemption from compelled. Just read it right here. It says it right here. Like, the Constitution doesn't apply to anyone in here unless you know who you are. Because right now we're born into a military penal colony.
Mm-hmm. So let me go ahead and wrap and continue on here because I've got to keep 15 minutes. I'm watching the clock at the same time. By the way, this last year we filed, and I say we, I've worked with some other people. We actually had a case in front of the Supreme Court of the United States. It was called Panko v. Panko. And it was a divorce that took place in the state of Pennsylvania. I'm from Pennsylvania. So we were involved with that. We wrote the case. You can go to the Supreme Court docket and actually find the case. You can download it, see the arguments. But basically what we were trying to do was to look at this as a religious discrimination, a religious viewpoint discrimination case. And the reason I say that right now is because there's a case right now that's being adjudicated. I think it's by First Liberty or Liberty Counsel. Can't remember which one. But it specifically deals with religious viewpoint discrimination. And I was down at a conference in Austin a couple of years ago. We had somebody who worked in the Trump administration, and he talked about religious viewpoint discrimination. We've had other people talk about this. And, when you automatically have a divorce against you, when you've said, wait a minute, I've entered into this as a religious duty, ceremony, whatever you want to do, and you have no defense, that appears to be a religious viewpoint discrimination case. So I'm really watching this case that's taking place, I think it's in Boston right now. Once that's done, I think it has wider implications, especially as it pertains to the divorce and marriage code. And by the way, the divorce and marriage code is very important. The divorce and marriage code, once again, is how Lenin weakened society. First off, churches used to grant marriage, right? That you go to the church to get married. Well, Lenin made it a civil institute instead of a religious institute. And we in America have said, well, we've defeated communism, but we're going to take no-fault divorce. We're going to do exactly what Vladimir Lenin did. Our divorce code in the state of Texas mirrors what Vladimir Lenin did. And here's the problem that even happened with the communists. They were smart enough to realize they had a problem, and they started denying divorces. You tell us why you need a divorce. State of Texas, except for the 2 cases that we heard about, it's an automatic thing. There is no defense. There is a predetermined outcome. And by the way, that also violates Article 3, Section 5613 of our Texas Constitution. And what that says is that the legislature shall not pass a special law granting divorces. You can see it. It is a special law. A special law, the plaintiff will always, or the petitioner, to use the term, will always win. Always. And how do you know that? The petitioner gets the divorce. The respondent may say, I don't think it's necessary. I don't know even what the problem is. And the petitioner is saying, well, it's insupportable. Really, the petitioner is saying, I've got hoochie coochie over here on the side, and I like her or him better. No-fault divorce is a lie for the most part. I'm not saying that there aren't instances, but I think no-fault divorce should actually be called mutual abandonment. If you want to leave a marriage mutually, do it mutually. No-fault divorce creates unilateral no-fault divorce. This is barbaric. When you enter into marriage, once again, you've worked 25 years, you've gone through a lot of struggles, but you've said, okay, this is for our future, this is for our family. We have a home together. And a judge can come in and say, you know what? Sorry, at this point in time, we're dividing this up. She gets the home, you get the bills, or something like that. And I'm not saying it happens that blatantly, but I know people that have had to sell their homes to pay the other person's attorney fees. And by the way, you've had these children, and all of a sudden, you don't get to see the children except when the state allows you to do it. And by the way, even though you didn't want the divorce, we're going to punish you as not punish you, we're going to reward you with a consolation prize of child support and alimony. Well, why doesn't she stay with me? That's not an option. She wants out. What's the legal basis? Well, there is no legal basis, but she wants out. It's so much garbage. Anyway, so it is, like I said, the first thing is the no-fault divorce issue becomes a religious liberty issue. Why is the state destroying either a sacrament or an ordinance of the church, depending on whether you're Catholic, Orthodox, Protestant?